done journey mapping, traditional journey mapping, a number of you. One of the things we want to introduce today is some of the more innovative areas of design. So when we're talking about design, it's about solving problems nobody else can see. It's about using different thinking patterns and techniques to solve problems that your traditional best practice cannot see. I have 45 minutes, and in 45 minutes I want to dive into an approach which represents some of what we call the leading edge of thinking. What we're starting to do is integrate the best of what I call data-centric CX. So data-centric CX is what I call interaction management. Interaction management is where you look at your customer journey. You work out where it comes from. You measure. Do I like it? Do I feel good about it? Does it seem good? And I make it better. Now that's really useful, and it's good in the domain of customer experience. Customer centricity is when we start to develop an understanding of customer. 4 things. So you'll hear the traditional definition, which will talk about the sum of the interactions between customer and company. Great, but I think we can do further. We need to unpack a little bit more. So the unpacking we bring in is to think about outcomes we can deliver that a customer desperately needs. How do we make our customer feel? Does it feel good? Does it feel bad? Do we feel indifferent? What do we feel? How easy do we make the journey? Ease under all its connotations, ease under all its meanings. And then 4, the connection that we go and create. Now think of it, those 4, not a definition, but an unpacking. Now customer centricity is where you go and take this enhanced understanding of customer and you align it into your strategies, your processes, your KPI, your people, your capability, your culture, success measures. And that's what makes this probably the most fascinating business discipline of the second decade, third decade of the 21st century. Yeah, I'm 10 years behind. So what I'm going to do is today I'm going to focus on a specific of a technique, which is how we can use design-based approaches to get a detailed understanding of customer. I've got 40 minutes, so I've got to dive into it really quite quickly. I just want to say very, very briefly, what you'll start to see here is the context of how we look at being journey mapping, move into design. So we talk about level 1 journey mapping and level 2, and I'm going to talk about a specific technique in level 2 journey mapping, and that's how we use successful customer outcomes to deliver that understanding of customer. Yes, yeah, put it straight in. When you ask a customer what they want and need, they'll pretty well answer you in 2 or 3 specific ways. Number 1, they'll say to you, they'll answer you in the context of who they think you are. If you're in the medical profession, they'll answer in the context of what's wrong. If you're a mechanic, they'll talk about your cars and your transport. So you think about this, it's still talking about your wants and needs, but you're aligning what your perception of answer is. And that, by definition, creates a level of distortion. Number 2, we go to our problem space. What are our problems right now? So when we talk about wants and needs, we do it in the context of the problems we want to solve. Great. If you move from time point X to time point Y, that problem space might have changed. And that therefore means our needs have changed. And when we're trying to deliver projects and programs, we get into things such change control, which can actually mess up the smooth delivery of projects and people disagreeing what the wants and needs actually are. And then thirdly, what we do is we extrapolate. Cheaper, faster, better version. But it's distortion on top of distortion on top of distortion. I'm not saying that data and that sort of insight is not valuable. It is really valuable. But it doesn't get to the depth of insight we can, and that's why we're using design methods to look at this differently. Do you want to jump in now?
Assalamu alaikum. Can everyone hear me okay? All right. So what Charles has just explained is about how do we use the power of design to develop great experiences. And what we have here is an agile, but a very comprehensive framework. So if those of you who are familiar with design thinking or journey mapping know that there are a number of tools and methods which are loosely tied, and you need to have loads of experience in order to understand how to use it in a comprehensive framework. So what we have here is an agile journey mapping and management framework, which is based on the outcome-based thinking approach. For today, we'll be looking at this particular component, which is called the outcome-based needs analysis, which we are also termed as the silver bullet in customer experience. We'll be taking you through a case study. In the best interest of time, we'll be moving very quickly into this and showing you how very quickly you can step into the mind of what a customer is and move away from traditional data-centric reactive CX into more proactive customer experience.
You're saying not use it?
Do you want to do this? Yeah, go ahead. Just go. Sorry.
Okay, this is probably a little bit easier. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this in the context of an example. Those of you who have got your phones here, jump in and just grab this QR code, and this will take you into the example. What I'm going to ask you to do is just to take a minute to read it. I've deliberately taken you into the era of education. It's a university in South America, so I'm moving outside our comfort zone and our knowledge area. You do not need to know about university processes in South America to be able to answer this. So what we have is this university, and effectively the journey is we have a student who is going to the university. He's been accepted, way hey, but they need to go and get a loan. That's very, very common now across most of the world. And that loan has got to cover education, accommodation, and subsistence. Now, very roughly, when this student goes through the process of going to a loan officer, he will physically go to the university. He will have a meeting, and during that meeting, he will discuss the basic needs of the loan process. He will fill out an application form, and then there is a period of time while this is being processed. A decision is being made. And then monies are then electronically debited to the student. The challenge is, how can we turn the loan office from a cost center to a profit center? The challenge they always also had is a lot of students were not getting their monies on time. They were having a bad experience in terms of how they feel with the loan officer. The application wasn't being processed, and the monies they were expecting were not arriving until 6 weeks in to their first year. This is immense pressure for a youngster going into education for the first time. And a lot of these people don't come from well-off families, so this represents a problem. So we've got to go and solve it. Now, the easy solution is I'll go and get some data. And I'll basically do I'll basically do research, data. I'm even doing observation on the process. We call that ethnography. But what we're going to do here is I'm going to unpack the wants and needs and some ideas of solution. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find some opportunity to turn this into a profit center. Now, to do that, it involves a process in innovation we refer to as reframe. Now, a reframe is very simple. Anybody can learn to innovate. There'll be some of us here who pride ourselves on being innovators. Some of it find it more difficult. We all know people who see themselves as being, we know people in our workplaces who we say, let's bring in Ahmed. He's brilliant. Bring in Ahmed for marketing. He can give us answers nobody else can give. He seems to think differently. What Ahmed is doing is something very, very simple called reframe. And there are lots and lots of examples we see every day, but we don't nevertheless appreciate it. So let's go into very quickly a patient experience setting. We can go and see a doctor. And he may look at our friend Peter at the back. I would say he must be, I don't know, 1.86 m, give or take. I will probably give a guess of his weight as probably 91 kilos. And he tells me he's healthy, so he's got a BMI of about 25, let's say 0.1. If you had a CAT scan or an X-ray, it would take a different representation of the human body. If they took blood tests, it would take another representation. So in other words, your medical practitioner can look at Peter and they can see a different view of Peter. We don't do that very well in business. And we're going to do a simple reframe as we go through this today. So to recap, student, lots of complaints. He's been accepted into university. He's got to go and get his loan approved. He's had bad experiences. He's not getting his money on time. Plus the loan office wants to turn it into a profit center. How do we do it? So in the absence of anything else, what we're going to try and do is take this through step by step. Now, what I'm going to do is very quickly introduce this technique. Now, if I printed this technique off and I gave it to each of you and you said, okay, thanks, Charles, I'm off now, and you tried to apply it, it wouldn't work. It takes a little bit of effort. There's an art as well to this science. So this takes a few goes. I'm going to try and explain it in the time we have. So what we try and do is not go to the problem initially, because if you go to the problem, we'll go off into distortion. It happens every single time. What we're going to try and do is we identify who our customer is. Very, very careful here in the context of how they see themselves, not as the loan officer sees them. That's really important, because if you define it in the narrow context of how the loan officer sees them, you will miss the reframe opportunity. But we don't worry too much about that. We just say, right, let's go step by step, identify how the customer sees them. Then I'm going to identify my storyboard. Now, what I mean by a storyboard is effectively as anything happens in the context of their journey by whatever actor is involved. It might be the company, it'll be the customer, but it might be partners, it might be competitors. They're all actors. Get them down. That immediately pushes against the traditional definition of customer experience, which looks at interactions between customer and company. We've got to go further. It's all actors in the story. Now, this is the next bit, and it's actually very, very powerful. And I always recommend anybody in an executive position who wants to understand their customers really well goes and does something like this. You step into the journey as if you are that customer. You become that representation. And you go to the first moment of truth, and you stop, and you say, I demand. This is what I want. I demand. And you basically write down exactly what you want to happen, and you play a really selfish customer. Now, this is where people in companies go, we can't do that, we can't do that. I said, no, we've got to step into this. We're not saying we're doing everything, but we're going to say we at least understand it. And we go on through. Now, what this does, as you do that, it gets you very intimate with what's going on. You get a really good feeling. And by the way, this process means you're consuming value. I'll reiterate, you're consuming value. And that value is what drives how we feel about our customers. So when we look at our businesses like a strategy or a KPIs or a dashboard, they're fairly ad hoc representations of our business. Stepping into a journey and say, I demand, I want, means I consume value. And once I understand that value, I'm in a much better position to do something about it. Number 4, overall objective. My customer, what's their overall objective? So in the airline industry, you might find a British Airways customer says, well, I'm in the business of traveling from London to Riyadh. If you identify your customer as a passenger, which is how the company identifies them, you get no further than a trip. If you identify them in the context of how they see themselves, they don't see themselves as the passenger, they're the businessman or the holidaymaker. So say, for example, they're a holidaymaker. What's the holidaymaker's overall goal? Simple. Have a great holiday. That's what I want to do. But once I know that, that actually starts the reframe process, which means I'm identifying solution ideas in the context of the holidaymaker, and I'm not restricting myself to the flight. Just stay with this because I'll be demonstrating this as we go through. And then they'll go to the solution. The solution goes 2 levels. I go back to my expectation. Remember the expectation? I've stepped into the journey. I demand. Next step, I demand. I demand. And you write down ideas for solution to actually solve that. You're not saying you're going to implement it. You're ideating how you might solve it. And then the second level to that is you then think back to the overall objective and think about ideas that you can deliver against, which will help. So guess what that does on the airline? If British Airways understood they're in business of not flying planes, but doing what some of the airlines say, we're a travel company, because their customer is a holidaymaker, we get into the business of hotels, tours, all sorts of third-party opportunities outside paying for a ticket. And actually, some of those, what they term ancillary, actually it's not ancillary, it's core, but these other revenue streams can actually deliver more profitability than the core competency. And I'll show you how that works. And then it's transferred into a needs and impact, and I won't talk about that now. So, Olga, you come and... To help us get through a little bit of this, I'm going to start off with a simplified version. I'm going to just go 1, 3, 4, and 5. So you've all got on your iPhones. Who is the customer in the context of this example? I feel like picking on somebody from Najm. Any ideas? There's a prize. If I could put it... Yeah, who is the customer in this context? Yeah, students. You see, a lot of this is really simple because you're going to look at this and go, hang on a second, this is straightforward. And it is. It's about simplifying complexity. This is not a difficult bit. This is the student. Dot out of the into normal mode and go a little bit of a... Go further down. Down. Just bear with us. Go further down. Stay with that at the moment. So the second bit is we're going to step into their process. Now, I broke this loan down into 4 areas. Number 1, a meeting. Number 2, an application. Number 3, a decision. And number 4, money. Just stick with that for the moment. Now, there's a little technique which we've taken, which sometimes you do not have the time to write down all the moments of truth. So you play it as if you are that persona going for a meeting. And it opens up a lot. Now, you have to validate this. I'm not saying you don't validate, but it opens up a lot of ideas. So looking at some of these things, these are the sort of things I'm going to say. So I'm thinking, I'm getting I need to get a loan. What do? I want to have the freedom to meet the loan officer at my place of choosing when I want. Where I want, when I want, how I want. I don't know what the solution is yet, but I'm not going to write it. I'm going to say that. Now, if it was somewhere like Canada, where people are living in Vancouver, they're going to say, I want the loan officer to come to me. In other places where it's close, they say, I want to go to the loan officer, but I also, during that meeting, I want to have a look around the university. I want the meeting, a time and place of my choice. And then it's all the things, and you step into it, and you visualize yourself walking in, and you're sitting down. I want this meeting to start on time. I want this guy to understand his process intimately. If it's in South America, we might want them bilingual. I'm going to a university, I might want to be able to do it in English or in Spanish. If it's in Brazil, it'd be Portuguese. If it's Canada, it'd be French. So there might be a bilingual component. I want to be able to do this meeting in English or in Spanish or the language of my choice. I maybe want to see the university and all the facilities. So all we're doing here in the context of ideation is we're just starting to think those things through. Now, you could go and do a survey, and you could go and apply 2,000 students, and 2,000 students will come in and answer. They're not going to answer any differently. Reason? Because we're putting ourselves in the shoes of that customer. Why go and ask a question when you can put in place a persona and ask that question yourself? Yes, validate, definitely validate, but don't go and ask something you've got a pretty good idea on how to at least start that ideation process. Let's see where it takes us. Olga, move into the next. Okay, so writing the application form. If you're doing an application form, any ideas about if you're doing an application form, what you'd like to see? Easy questions. Okay, so I want the questions to be, is that long questions or short questions? Easy to understand. And if you don't understand it, what would you like to see? Some explanation. So you would like to have frequently asked questions, or potentially a bit of AI. God, you're going to hear lots about AI in these next couple of days. How about AI to help us answer some of those questions? What else would you want when you're doing an application form? Do you want to do it? Do you want to sit there and go? And how many times when you're doing an application form are you repeating information you have already told them? You've applied to the university, they've accepted. They know your Christian name, your surname, your middle names, your date of birth. They know if you're male or female. They know everything about you. Do you want all that information to be written out again? No, most definitely not. So we want something auto-populated. Just be demanding here. What else? Najm ladies, sorry. Okay, I want everything to be saved. Let's get even more demanding. Really demanding here. Do you want to do the application form? I wouldn't. Perhaps you'll have somebody to write it for you. Perhaps that application form can be done during that interview. Perhaps that application form will also be in the language of my choice. So we've got a few things here. Call center, what about it? It could be, but what you might have said also, you might want to do it virtually, but you might want to do it face to face. Now, I'm not saying here we're going to do this, but we've got to at least understand what those wants and needs are, and we'll validate those. Let's move on to the next. Step 3. So the step 3 is the decision. Now, this is an interesting one. Dear applicant, email comes to you, dear applicant, thank you for your application. We will get back to you as soon as we can on our decision. Thank you very much for your application. Yours sincerely, Mr. or Mrs. Loan Officer. And we sit there and we wait and we wait and we wait. What do we want to see about a decision? Play selfish. Perfect. It's got to be a prize for you for getting that to immediately. So a decision right away. I want to know now. Now this is customer experience for you. This is what we've got to grapple with. Because if you don't grapple with it, somebody else will. And if somebody gets to do these things ahead of you, you're behind. And it doesn't mean if you're government or you're in competitive private organizations, they still both count. I want a decision now. Is that possible in this day and age? All this technology? Now, there's very good reasons why the technology might be old to say that might not be possible. The United Kingdom is one fantastic example why decisions can be slow, because we have databases which are 20, 30, 40 years old, which don't talk to each other. I want a decision now. What else? So at various times, you're a student, and you're saying, I want to be able to talk to somebody. I quite like to have somebody I can ask questions of. Sorry? Yes. So it's going to be all sorts of things. Now, there's going to be, and this is what we do in the real world, there'll be, what's your name? Rahaf, thank you. Now, Rahaf's come up with a really good idea, and is saying having a relationship manager, and what using that relationship manager, the student can go and contact at any time. And I guarantee there'll be at least 2 or 3 people here who'll be thinking, that's not a very good idea. Only 2 or 3. It's a brilliant one, by the way. It's a brilliant one. But there'll be 2 or 3 people who say, that's not necessarily a good idea. And they'll have all the reasons why. It means we've got to have loads of people in call center, and we're going to have too much call volume, and we can't do that, and the students need to be told what to do. We can't be pandering to them. There'll be lots of things being said. We're not deciding. We're understanding it at this juncture. And that's important, because sometimes we'll break through glass ceilings, and it may be the best idea in the world. Personally, I support that. But I actually want a decision. But that decision, what's that decision going to be? How much? But what's the most important thing on that decision? When? I want money into my account. Now, there's a big danger with all that money going into your account representing 3 years, covering your education, your sustenance, and your accommodation. But we haven't got there yet. And that's why we don't think about that. Because if you start thinking about all the problems, guess what happens? Lots and lots of discussion. And lots of discussion means we lose agility. So the discipline of the process is quite important here. Even though you can see problems, And there'll be people here who will say, I can see problems in that, but I'm not going to discuss it with you right now, but I acknowledge that is going to be demand, and we're going to consider that. And then the last one. I'm going to go through into it very, very quickly, is money into account. When do you want the money into account? Now. I want it right away. I definitely want it before term starts on the first year. And that's great. We've got our understanding. Now, we'll go to the next one. Olga, I'm just assuming you're following as I go through this at pace. We've got a student. This is not a typical one, but it's a very important one. What is the overall process the student is in? What is the overall process? I'm going to start asking people. What's the overall process? You see, it's very easy to think about this in the transactional. They say the process is, I'm applying for a loan. That's not what we're asking. We're asking what is the overall objective of being a student. Somewhere at the beginning of it is applying a loan. And the way to resolve that, think of all the things a student does. They apply for a loan, they get accepted, they go to university, they have their exams, they have their assessments, they have their tutors, they play sports, they socialise. They tell their colleagues that they're the future, and everybody below 22 is the past. Above 22 is the past. We've all done it. I've got a few blank looks at me, maybe not in Saudi Arabia. Is the British students maybe a bit more arrogant? We are. So the overall processes are wide, and this is important, is you don't look at the transaction, the overall process a student is in is going to be either getting a fantastic degree, or if you're going to Harvard Business School, you don't go to Harvard Business School just for your degree. What do you go to Harvard Business School for? The job. It's an accelerated route to your $150,000 first job in government or private. And believe it or not, you've got people living with a BSc coming out of university in some areas of the States, and their first job is $150,000 a year if you're going through the right school. There's a downside. You don't get to, you just about get enough time to eat, and even then that's not 100%. You're working very often 100 hours a week. But boy, oh boy, if you're getting to the top of Harvard Business School, you're probably already there. So a big reason is you are in the business of getting a great job, let's say getting a great degree. Now, why is it we're going that wide? It's really important to understand that, because that reframe is the loan officer is not there just to help get a loan. A loan officer understands you're going there to get a great degree. And that starts to think about their behavior and starts to think about the products and services they can offer. So we'll go and solve some of these. So we go into the next level, Olga. So the next level is we'll go to some of those demands. So if the first demand is, I want to have a meeting with loan officer at a time, at a place of my choice. How do we do that? It's not complex. In the era we just come through, we do it virtually. Now here's the important thing. It might be the request is, I want the loan officer to come from the north of the country to the south of the country to meet me. It doesn't sound logical that we'd expect that, but we're looking for the solution. How would we get a loan office process from the north of the country to the south of the country? In other words, go to your place or somewhere very close. It's called having a team, having almost like a a road show and doing a tour over 1 or 2 weeks to all the cities, main cities around the country, so nobody around the country has to go more than 20, 30 kilometres to meet the loan officer. Is it possible? Absolutely. Are we going to do it? Don't know yet. There may be the step back which says, I can do absolutely everything apart the face-to-face using voice over IP, Zoom, Teams, we've got them. Let me grab another one. Let's take the application process. How can we get an application process done during the interview? Yeah, there's nothing to say. There's, why can't we have a process where the loan officer says, I'll take you through this and we'll fill it in. I'll fill it in for you. By the way, it's saved. I send it to you. And you've got an equivalent of like a DocuSign. You look at it, think about it, amend it, talk to us before you sign it. But I'll do it for you all there and then. So you come out of a 45-minute session and your application is done. This is getting a bit better, isn't it? I've literally just arrived to understand it and I've come out with an application done. I'm suddenly realizing my customer experience has gone up. Reason, because this is really easy. Really easy. And there's a lot of statistics out there to say if you make a process really easy, people will keep on coming back. We're going to have to make it really easier. Somebody here said, I want a decision now. Who said that? That was you, wasn't it? We're going to have to exchange business cards. This man is thinking customer experience. And this is exactly the sort of thing that we need, because we need to recognize these are ideas. If you've never seen any of this before, I've never met you, you're coming out with some great ideas. Thank you, sir. But if I want a decision in the moment, how do we do that? And it sounds complicated. What decisions do we need to make? And why we might not, and I'm going to come to you in one sec, why won't we give them the loan?
You will not be able to pay it back, or maybe do whatever the criteria is, but of course I have a criteria that describes why I won't give it to him, or why.
So it's probably, if he's not going to be able to pay back, because you don't know what job he or she is going to have, and you're not going to know to what money they're going to earn, but you're going to have guidelines on whether something is too much. So it might be enough for your education, your subsistence, but you may not want to include enough money that they can go and buy a car. That would be outside. So you'd say that there is a control by an amount. That's handleable because we can create guidelines. What's your name? Sarah. Sarah.
Yes.
Sarah.
Actually talking about if decisions can't be made or even cannot have the money now, at least give us alternative. Like, you can't give me my money, but I need alternative while you take the decision.
What would be like, what sort of alternative?
For example, have the money or anything that can satisfy the customer.
But we're looking for a solution. So what's Sarah's...
Alternative.
Yes, so what Sarah's talking about is having an alternative. And that's absolutely valid. But what I'm going to say to Sarah is just hold on that at the moment, because I want to solve having the money before getting to the alternative. So you're thinking ahead, and I get that, because people thinking fast. How can I make, what other, so we've got to make sure that we've got enough. What other decision would we have to make? What happens a lot, because we haven't got a lot of time, is credit check. Now the thing is, as students, there's no point in having a credit check. They've got no credit history. So forget credit check. It doesn't have anything. There is one check you might want to do. It could be, or it's more likely if there's a criminal record, if there's evidence of any criminality. That's possibly the only reason. And even then it's tenuous. because you might say, look, everybody deserves a second chance, especially for 18, 19 years old. People deserve that second chance. So we're starting to go through and get those. And all we're doing here is we're building solution ideas. But just think about that. If you suddenly found a solution where I want to go to university, I can have the meeting over Zoom, I can have it tomorrow, application form, decision is made, there and then. I know how much, and a decision is made. How are you already feeling? We're already above 97, 98 decision processes in the country. Way above already. And we haven't even got to the reframe bit. And that's what I wanted to do, the last bit. So the last bit of it is going back to, which is solution 4, level 2, which says the student is in the business of getting a great degree. And I want to ideate around that and that alone. What problems will a student bump into when they arrive at university, having had a loan for, say, $80,000, the biggest chunk of change they've ever seen in their pocket? What sort of problems might they bump into? Yeah. So suddenly, you're suddenly arriving at university and you've already said, I want the money into my account. We haven't made a decision we're going to do it, but suddenly say the student suddenly has $100,000 in their account, round figure. And this covers everything. What might be a problem with that? They might go and spend it. Now, because I've done this in 30-something countries around the world, and it's really interesting to see what answers I get. The Brits like to go partying. The Brits spend money and they don't think about it. They really don't think about it. They go spending. Australia, they get a surfboard. Korea, they told me they get electronics. Hong Kong, they said they would appoint a financial advisor, invest it. Which sounds good, but maybe at 18 they need to get out more. But the sort of problems is they will run out of money. So if you're going to be running out of money, and at 18 you're not exactly going to be responsible or be expected, you're still in your growth phase in a lot of people, what might we do if people are going to spend it all? Idea? Yes? No. Najum? Any ideas?
We can transfer the money to the university directly.
Brilliant. That's another great immediate. I mean, straight off out, you've not seen this before, great. So we split it in. The accommodation and university, that can be split. We can put it into tranches. We can do it lump by lump. So brilliant. So even then, the only chunk you've got enough money for term 1 for your own, for your living, your eating, and you're doing this day to day. Everything else is paid, but you've still got a small, and you still run out at week 6. What else could you take advantage of? You don't want to go back and apply for more. What other things could we do? We're at university. We can teach people. We can teach people financial management skills. Year 1, term 1, day 1. 2 hours, how to manage your money, how to make your money go further, how to work out how to get the best use out of it. Is that going to help? Possibly. For a lot of people, it will. But there will be an irresponsible few who will still go and spend. I did a situation in London, and there was a Nigerian gentleman who said, yes, I went to a London university. And I said, what happened? He said, I ran out of money week 6. And I said, what happened? He said, I got a job. I said, oh, that's interesting. McDonald's. I said, what hours? He said, 9 to 5. I said, what happened? Well, I couldn't go to university lectures. I couldn't see my tutor. I did my exams and I failed. And I said, what happened next? I left university. And I said, where are you? Well, first 5 years I was at McDonald's. So, what we might want to do is give people access to opportunities. work opportunities, but when do you want those opportunities to be? Maybe after 6 o'clock on a work day or a weekend. You'd want certain types of jobs that are at least safe and jobs which are, say, within 5 kilometers of the university. Now, one of the problems we're trying to solve here is how do we turn the profit center, cost center, to a profit center?
If I split the payments, why won't I link the second payment for him for each term to his grades and the tutors?
You could certainly do the link. There is a certain split here. There is a split component. But because of time, I'm going to explain what it is. This is where partnerships come along. There'll be a specialist company who will be doing offer jobs boards. And if the person who runs a job board places somebody with the company, they normally get 20% of whatever they're going to earn, and normally for the first year. The jobs board, sorry? Yes. So what we could then do is that job board commission, because the work is being done by the loan officer, to open up work opportunity for people who need that bit extra, responsibly, the commission could be split. X% to university, X% stays with the job board. Now, I probably wouldn't do anything about giving any of that commission back to students because the students overspent. But what other things is a student likely to do? I'll give you an example. I want to travel. I still remember my first year, a few years ago now, and people were saying, you know, we're the future, I'm away from home, I don't need to go back home. And then by week 3, I want my mummy, I want my daddy, I've got to go home. So travel, student travel cards, but then there's opportunities for links with travel companies. You've got 4,000, 5,000 students, even at a mid-level university, and all of those are going to have those needs. You can facilitate a travel-based partnership, and there can be a split, which says, I get, because if I source all our university travel through you, Mr. Travel Company, I get X%. X is A% goes to student, B goes percent. So suddenly the student benefits, but the loan office also benefits. Now think what else we can do. Food, drink, do you want people to go and eat chips and tomato sauce? Or do you want people to eat whole meal, wholesome food, salads, good quality food? I think the quality of food at universities is getting better. But I think there's still a lot of cases where people go and find ways to spend your money. It could be gyms, it can be sports. One of the things people have got to do is got to go and buy books. You might go to Amazon, but all Amazon is a collection of effectively of bookstores in the context of books. If you're basically pushing 4,000 or 5,000 plus students to a single book outlet, you might go to Amazon to go and look inside. But if that bookstore says, I will guarantee 10% of what Amazon will give you, because I'm pushing so much volume through, of that 10%, 6% goes to student, 4% goes back to loan office. So where are we in the context of the ideas? Now, I'm going to come back to what you said, Sarah, and you're talking about alternatives. That's where that discussion is held. But what we're starting to find is, think about what we're doing with the journey. I talked about 4 things at the start. Outcomes which customers desperately need. How do we make our customer feel? How easy do we make it? And what connection do we create? And what we're doing here is suddenly we're coming up with a journey where the student, I'm going to university, fantastic. I can get a call with somebody over Zoom tomorrow. During that call, we will actually do the full application, and application will then send to me for me to look at, review, think about. Imagine I can go back and ask questions. That was requested from one of the delegates here today. Ask questions and discuss. I have a decision at the end of that meeting. I am told where that money is going to arrive. I'm going to be told that I'm not going to get all of it, but you're a first-year accommodation and you're going to get your subsistence, and the money will arrive a day or 2 days before university starts, guaranteed. You're also going to be placed on a training course. When you go to universities, you're there to study, but they're going to give you some guidance on how to make your money go further. You don't have to place it like that. You can also say, I will show you discounts and offers on some of the coolest things you can in the university area. I guarantee everybody will turn up. We all like the idea of a discount for when it's doing something really cool and really interesting. We suddenly find that if we do run out of money, we can actually take a job to supplement. We may have a sport. We have the opportunity to go somewhere and that we can get that job, and it's going to be at times which are convenient to us. We have offers to travel, offers for our food, offers to things, all the things that we want our student to do, we facilitate making it easier. Now I'm going to go back to those 4 questions. Am I delivering outcomes which your student needs? Absolutely. How is my customer feeling? He should be feeling great because it's happened. Ease, it's so quick, it's so easy. Connection, here's the thing. If we're suddenly finding we are able to identify partnerships which our students are consuming, which are contributing back to the university, and we're doing it at numerous levels, what are we doing? We're bringing down the cost of university tuition. So you've got 5 universities, all of the equal attraction, and one of them is 15% lower fees for everything than their competition. Where are you likely to go? If all things being equal, you'll go to the more attractive one because it's lower. What does it give the university the opportunity to do? Up their demands. We want a better quality student. I want to be more rigorous of who stays and who goes. Now, I want to go back to the very, very first slide, which just basically shows the layer. And it's really my last point. What I've done, I would normally take a good solid morning, and this is part of our practitioner training. And I've gone through this incredibly fast. But what it enables you to do is what design does. It enables you to identify opportunities or solutions that data, research, ethnography, and all your traditional data-centric methods cannot. This process here, and I haven't gone through all this, don't try and consume all this, this needs to be explained. What we're effectively doing is it helps us create future states which remove points of failure, causes of work, points of complexity. It helps us understand our customer beyond anything that's traditionally out there. And you're bringing, optimizing, removing the dumb stuff, and aligning to that enhanced view of customer. If we're able to do that, we feed our strategies, we feed our journeys, we feed our understanding of customer, we feed our understanding of what success really looks like and what really feels like. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a very fast intro in what is likely to be the future of customer experience. It's a big integral part of design, and it's the next level beyond what data-centric CX can give you. It's incredibly powerful. And if you're really interested to understand more of this, give us your business card, we'll show more. It's part of our general day programs. But I've taken you through in an hour what would normally take half a day just for that bit. And the stuff I've got here, you'll be bouncing this around within 2 days, and you'll be able to take it directly back and apply back into your organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Charles Bennett, Hassan Mohammed, Olga Badieri, Manal Nasser. I want to say have a great day, have a great conference. Absolute pleasure to see you all. Thank you so much.